We have made it through the acclimation days, and we prepare for preseason game 1. This is the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss Podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available whenever you get your podcast. Let's jump right in. This week we are preparing for the first scrimmage. It's going to be an open scrimmage, but it's going to be a scrimmage just the same. Now, the important thing to know about that, you can go. It's open to the public. But it's going to be preseason game 1. And there are 3 things that need to happen over the next 2 weeks. That for these next 2 weeks, these are the next 2 most important weeks out of the whole football season. And we will tell you what those are as well. So anyway, thank you very much for this past weekend. This past weekend has been phenomenal. Video Friday was phenomenal. All the stuff that's come through, all the socials, we're hearing from you. We're trying to do as good a job as we can do. So thank you very much for that. Anyway, number 1, quarterback play consistency. The next 2 weeks are going to play the most pivotal role in the quarterback competition. Whoever is probably in front, and if he takes the bull by the horns in the next 2 weeks, he will emerge as the starting quarterback. That's just the way it's going to happen. Now that full pads can get there, pass rush can happen, team periods can evolve to be exactly what they need to be. Intensity can rise. Ole Miss is back there playing a drop 8, so these guys see that in practice quite a bit. So the passing aspect of this offense is going to be more difficult. And they're going to miss like Matt Corral and the things that he brought to the team last year. There's no question about that. But Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier have steps that they can make. And remember, this is an open competition. This is how it absolutely is going to be the case. And also, you see fans all the time, and some writers talk about Kincaid Dent, and I'm sure he's a nice kid. I'm sure he's a really nice kid. But every time the question's asked to the coach answers on Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier. Doesn't mention Kincaid Dent at all. They had to be probed and asked specifically about Kincaid Dent to answer a question about him. So in our quarterback competition, we're not going to talk about Kincaid. I understand that some people want to hear about Kincaid. We're not really going to talk about Kincaid. It's nothing personal against the kid. It's just the podcast is only 30 minutes long a day. So Jackson Dart and Luke Altmaier, whichever one comes out the next 2 weeks at the top of the list, probably has a real good chance to take that first snap against Troy. Because the next 2 weeks, and I do not know the exact days when it happens, but it's about going to line up how it's going to happen. You're going to have 2 weeks of practice to where camp can actually be camp. And going through trying to get this job. After that 2 weeks, school starts. You get into your game week type schedule. You're getting ready for Troy. Your game planning. In a perfect world, probably the Thursday before Troy, they would go public with a quarterback if one wins the competition. I don't know if one is going to win the competition, but we'll have to see how that goes. Now remember, if people want to historically combine this, Blake Sims won the job. He was named in week 1. Jacob Coker was named in week 1. They put another quarterback in against Ole Miss. They lost the game, went back to Coker. Alabama won the national championship. Jalen Hurts won the job before the first game. So that's Lane Kiffin's history at Alabama. Now, at FAU, I think, I don't know his exact name. It's something Driscoll. I think it's Jeff, maybe. I don't know, but there was 2 Driscolls, and one went to Florida and one went to FAU. So the little brother, not the one that went to Florida, won the job. Good year. He was a John Rice Plumlee type quarterback. Very good stuff. If you want to know that this offense can look exactly like Arkansas's, there you go. Go back and watch the 2017 FAU team. They had a kind of a cluster in 2018 at quarterback. And I think they were talking about forcing a quarterback decision too early, and that happened in 2018. 2019, Bobby Robeson won the job. Oklahoma transfer. They won the conference title. So out of 5 years between FAU and Ole Miss, he's got 3 10-win seasons. Pretty good. Pretty good as a football coach, honestly. So, but the next 2 weeks is going to be a big point because the most data points are here, either whether in the classroom or on the practice field. 17 different ways that you can impress the coaching staff. The next 2 weeks there's the most of them available. So this quarterback competition at the end of 2 weeks, this next 2 weeks, probably is going to be the starter for the Troy game. Now, even if they know who that starter is going to be, they're not going to tell us. They're not going to tell Troy. That's why. But if everything goes clear cut, that 2-week period is probably the first time that internally within the football complex, they could be thinking about a starting quarterback. Now, if they play 2 against Troy, do not freak out. Don't. Because honestly, it's a sign they're close, not necessarily either one's better than the other. There was just not a clear-cut winner. Now, coaches are notoriously slow decision makers. They only make decisions when they have to, and when they do, it's so slow. They need hours upon hours upon hours of film coming through so they can drill every possible situation, so they can feel as good as possible about whatever decision they need to make. An example of that is the 2020 defense. We saw at the end of last year, Ole Miss was a good defensive team. A lot of those same guys were here in 2020. The beginning of 2020 was the worst defense I have literally ever seen. Alabama played Ole Miss and gained as many yards as they could gain, -7. 7 yards from their maximum amount that they could gain, they gained. And this is why that happened. Coaches are such slow decision makers. They rely on hours and hours and hours of film. And when that happens, you can get an idea of who needs to play where. 2020, there was no spring for DJ Durkin. Fall camp was severely cut down. And whenever you look at what's going, there's not as much film out there. So the result was the wrong players were playing at the beginning of the season to do what he wanted to do. And that allowed the other teams, the wrong players playing, the defense to not be where it needs to be. That everything new coming in, it just was a train wreck. And as the season went on and the film caught up to where it needed to be, you noticed different players playing. You noticed that the defense was getting better. And against Indiana, that was a decent unit. And it was because of that lack of film that was really apparent for everyone involved. So, I do want to tell you about LinkedIn. As you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. LinkedIn Jobs is here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. That's like 10% of the world's population is on LinkedIn. Seriously, that's a lot of people. Then add your job in the purple #hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people to hire. It's got simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visited LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. You can see down there in the corner for the address to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including iTunes and Spotify. Please leave a 5-star review. It doesn't matter what you say. Just make sure the review is 5 stars. That'll help others find the show in the future if they want to. Even if you don't like it, that 5-star review will help the algorithm and get the show up on the thing and might help somebody that will like it. So we do appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. So in the first segment, we talked a lot about the quarterback competition and how it is imperative the next 2 weeks go well for each of the candidates. Because the next 2 weeks is probably going to tell the tale. This is the most important 2 weeks of the season right now. And the first preseason game, as we mentioned, is Saturday. It's open to the public if you want to go. It's in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium. It's approximately at 11:30. If you want to go put your eyes on it, it is going to be there for you to do it. So, whenever you look at that, that is the story of camp. The quarterback competition is number one. We're going to dig into it all different ways. We're going to find opinions and personalities and context and everything we can to figure out clues and solve the case of the missing quarterback at Ole Miss. But there are other stories as well. And there's 2 other that I'm paying attention to. And now that acclimation days is over, the O-line and D-line play can come into focus. Because, let's be real, in acclimation days, the O-line and D-line is like, yeah, you guys look real good and everything. But you can't really tell what's going on because you're not going to play the same way. It's not going to happen the same way. And in doing so, the O-line and D-line, you can't really get a read on exactly how good they are. You have guys that is supposed to be good. Jeremy James is supposed to be a dude moving out to left tackle. Nick Broeker moving into left guard. I mean, that side of the line should be in fine. Caleb Warren at center. I've heard rumors of problems at the beginning of spring, but that has gone away. You don't really hear about that anymore. Might still be there. We'll see. Eli Acker at right guard. Mason Brooks at right tackle. The offensive line should be good. Defensive line, there's rumors of them being 3 deep across the front. I want to see how they look going forward. I want to see the newbies like Jared Ivey. I want to see if Cedric Johnson can take that step. We all expect him to take it. I want to see if he can take it. I want to see if J.J. McGee's can adapt and be a solid role as a nose guard and as a possible 3 technique. I want to see Jamon Gordon, Isaiah Aiton. I want to see all of those guys and how they have progressed year over year. And this will be really the first time that we can see that. And we'll be able to pay attention to what is going on in the stadium whenever this open scrimmage happens. It's all about putting eyes on it. And you're not really going to be able to answer any questions by seeing the practice in the stadium. The whole purpose of these practices is organized chaos, by the way. So if you're looking at it, if you see it, you don't really know what's going on. Ole Miss practices 2 fields during camp. You can't focus on that many things at once. There's so much going on at one time. If you try to figure out what's going on, you're just going to be led in a different direction. And that's the reason, even in a spring game, they do such a good job of showing stuff without showing stuff. It's honestly quite impressive. But the offensive and defensive line, this is the most important 2 weeks of the season. A lot of tone setting is going to happen with this one. I want to see a physical group. I want to see if Jake Thornton's offensive line can be a physical running group, especially with Zach Evans, Ulysses Bentley, and Quinshon Judkins. I want to see them really take off. Because this is just real and not making fun of anybody. Until the pads go on, you're going to have workout warriors that can kind of stand out. That doesn't mean they're good football players yet. But in shirts and shorts, they might look like a higher level of player. When the pads go on, you actually get to see who separates who, and especially on the offensive line and defensive line. Third of all, we're talking about the wide receiver pecking order. Everybody needs to find a home. There's some talented guys. We're going to have Mike Espy and Chris Collins on the show on Wednesday, and they are going to talk potentially about the number one unit on this team being the wide receiver unit. They really like Malik Heath. That's obvious. Braylon Brown's a dude. That's my pick to collect this year. Jonathan Mingo's a dude. They've moved Jalen Knox out there. I've heard rumors that they're thinking about moving Jordan Watkins. All of this is happening. Those outside receivers pecking order becomes increasingly important. The inside guys, that shows you that Jalen Robinson and J.J. Henry, they're being dudes right now. They're making plays. Those outside receivers, it's a thankless job in this offense. Yeah, I know it's completely counterproductive to think about it, but it's almost close to a wishbone wide receiver in this offense because all of the conflict players are inside the hashes. So RPOs are going to be run off them. So the outside guys, you go down a block, boom, 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 and they're trying to go as fast as possible, and everything that means that they can't really probe the defense deep, except for every so often. But 10% of the plays of the game are what I like to call Lane Kiffin shot plays. And players like Jordan Watkins, players like Jalen Knox, Braylon Brown, Malik Heath, Jonathan Mingo, that is where those guys make their hay. It's going to be all about that. Anyway, let's tell you about BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the number one source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top resource for all of your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts that have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Anyway, we got Marshay Green. Had a little bit of an internet issue. We had to edit it from time to time. Hopefully it came out all right, but I wanted to get it on here because Marshay had a lot of good things to say for you. So after the break, after this, Marshay Green. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. If we get to 2,000 subscribers before the Troy game, we are going to do a live pregame live stream. And if you could do that for me, it'd be great. I am here with Marshay Green. We're going to talk about camp. We're going to try and figure out his best camp story. And we're going to talk, if he knows anything about it, if he wants to talk about it, we're going to talk a little bit about the Ole Miss 2022 team. Anyway, Marshay, how you doing, bud?
Man, I'm doing great, man. Just raising my son, taking it one day at a time, man.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Weather, is it up there where you are? You're on the East Coast. Is it kind of hotter than normal up there? Because down in Florida, it's been fairly mild this summer.
It's definitely humid and it's definitely hot. It's like really, really hot.
Yeah, I bet it is. Anyway, Marshay, you played for two head coaches and been through camp back when camp was camp, and also you kind of saw a little bit of the transition. You went through the Coach O wars, which sometimes we all remember. Camp was a dude under Coach O. What was camp like for you under both coaches?
Well, camp under Coach O, like, it really introduced me to the grind of, like, no matter the elements, no matter how hot it is, you got to come out here and get better. So those first 2 years being in camp with Coach O really prepared me, and I would say the team, to sustain any type of camp that was upcoming in the future that would be under Coach Nutt. So those camp with Coach O really prepared us to be mentally tough and to really push through. Now, the camps with Coach Nutt taught us how to really practice and stay healthy. Don't take guys down to the ground. Don't come out here to try to hurt somebody. Practice smart, practice fast. And those camps taught us how to get better and better every single day.
Yeah. What is the story that, like, even now sticks out about camp for you?
One story that sticks out about camp for me was my freshman year, and Coach O was the coach during the time. And I remember the temperature being like 95 degrees. And during the time, the practice was being held on the game field. And the game field was so hot that guys' cleats began to melt, literally melt, like melt. And we really had to take bottles of water and dump on our feet to cool them off. And I remember that was probably happened 2 weeks straight, man. And guys was I'm talking about was shocked that their cleats was melting. So yeah, that's the story right there. Definitely.
Yeah. Anyway, Marshay, let's talk about, do you know much about the 2022 team? Anything about the current state of Rebels?
What I do know is that we have a lot of guys that have played college ball before that came to the school from the transfer portal. And I think from that itself, the team should be better. The team should be better with Coach Kiffin having another year to go on his belt. I'm just expecting maybe a 2-loss season this year, man.
Okay. And what do you, real quick, because you played professional ball, all of this, you were on that 2008 defense that was so dominant. Now, this drop 8 coverage that is now becoming in vogue in college football, where there's basically 4 safeties, there's 2 corners, and it's just drop 8 zone. What do you think about that?
You better have some D tackles that can control the line of scrimmage. You better have some guys up front that can really be a double team. I'm not too much a fan of that drop 8. I really like to get after people, so I'm not too big on it. But if Coach Kiffin thinks that's the best defense to run, then hey, go for it. But you really need some guys up front that can really dominate the line of scrimmage in order for that coverage or playing style to be successful.
Yeah, because we saw against Alabama last year, I call it murder ball, and it was just basically handed off to the running back and let him get 5 yards a pop every time, and they do that all the way down the field. So I understand where you're coming from there.
Definitely, exactly. You got to be able to have some guys that can kind of beat the double team and win on first downs. If they decide to run the ball, you have to win on first down to put the to put the offense in a pass 90 to 95% situation.
My theory, and I have nothing to back this up, is all the drop 8. They used that to great success last year. By the end of the year, they were a pretty good defense. But I think that was just the install, and they're going to start branching off of it a little bit this year. So you might see some 4-man. I mean, with J.J. Pegues, we actually have a 3 technique on this team for the first time in 3 years. So it'll be interesting to see what they do defensively.
Yeah, man. I think you can get away running that defense versus teams that are not very good. But if you're playing against teams like Bama, Texas A&M, you really going to have to change some things up and not run their defense as much.
Okay. And I'm going to ask you some questions that might be a little bit redundant because we've talked before. But
Hello?
I'm here. Can you hear me? You got me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to ask you some questions that
sir.
are going to be a little bit redundant because we've talked before, but this is a new platform. Okay. So, what was more enjoyable for you, playing corner or playing wide receiver?
Well, playing running back was more enjoyable. I never played corner. I never played wide receiver in high school. I was always a running back. And Coach Cutcliffe recruited me to play running back, and Coach Ogeron continued to recruit me to play running back. But if I had to choose out of corner and wide receiver, I definitely would say corner. From my competitive standpoint, I love taking one single guy out of the game. That's my favorite part of playing corner, opposed to playing the wide receiver position. I have to wait to have an effective impact on the game. A lot of people got to do their part, opposed to playing corner. I got this guy. So playing corner was much more enjoyable.
And this is going to be a weird question. It might be something that only I'm interested in, but that 2007 Mississippi State game, I guess maybe Hugh Freeze called the plays that day. That was at the end of the year. That was Coach O's last game. But they did this empty set with Brent Schaefer at quarterback, and you and Dex played on the slot, and y'all would kind of go back and forth. And it was kind of a neat little package, but we only saw it once. Can you talk about that a little bit? Do you remember anything about that?
I can't remember. I think Coach Freeze was calling the plays, and I think that's something that they installed that last week to try something different, to try to get me and Dex on the edge, sweet plays, screen plays. But I really would have liked to see how that went if we could have started the following season running those sets. Definitely.
Yeah, it was a cool thing, and I think people are going to remember that game because of Ben Jarvis on the 4th and 1, and I think the Derek McGee's punt return that caused all of that to get in there. But you guys played an interesting game that day, and the game plan of that, and that kind of, I mean, Ken Austin and Nutt came in, and it was a completely different style of football the next year. But you could see a little bit that game that spread offense might work.
Yeah, man. I just think the team was so young because we had a lot of freshmen starting. My freshman year, my sophomore year, the guys were still young, and so I think that season we was really getting a fully understanding of how to play SEC football. And so from Dexter to Shea Hodge to Mike Wallace to myself, and the following season having a new quarterback coming in, I just think the team was just fully understanding how to play SEC football.
Okay. And you might not know exactly what happened or anything like that, but I do have a question about the 2009 team. That team came in with a lot of expectations and everything, but for some reason at the beginning of the year, Brandon Bolden was getting most of the carries, and Dex was they were protecting him a little bit. Were they consciously trying to just take hits off of him, or were they really trying to make Brandon the guy at running back in 2009?
In my personal opinion, I think Coach Nutt was trying to get his young guys involved, and that was kind of taking away Dexter's impact. I truly think if our team started the season out pumping Dexter the ball, I really think the team would do better than the Cotton Bowl. Even though the Cotton Bowl was great, I really think our team should have and could have finished in the top 10 or top 5. And I think the team was ranked top 5. In that game, we didn't start out giving Dexter the ball until the second half. And if you watch that game, he started to get a lot of chunk yards, started to be successful. But I think if the team just would have started pumping Dexter the ball more that year, I think the team would have been a lot more successful on offense.
Yeah, and talk about that game real quick, that South Carolina game. What was that atmosphere like in the stadium that night? It looked nuts on TV.
Man, Listen, man, I played in a lot of stadiums, man. I played in the Swamp. I played in Death Valley. I played in Alabama. I played in the Combo. That stadium that night was the loudest stadium I played in my entire 4 years playing in the SEC. The stadium was crazy. The fans was crazy. That was like the best atmosphere that I played in my entire time playing in college. I think we could have won that game and should have won that game. And part of the reason why we didn't is I blame it on myself because I got tripped up on a punt return that I should have scored on. And I think that changed the whole momentum of the game if I'm able to not get tripped up by the punter and score.
Yeah, it was absolutely interesting. And is there any other places that you played in college football that's got an underrated atmosphere?
Underrated atmosphere. Let me see. I would say, yes. One of the most underrated atmospheres that I played in was, I want to say it was Kentucky.
Okay.
Playing in Louisville, Kentucky. We played against those guys my freshman year, and the place was rocking, man. So I think that's one of the most underrated places to play.
Believe it or not, I was there that night. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Kentucky's done a good job with their football program, and it kind of started about that time. That Rich Brooks team on to what there is, they've kind of grown that. Anyway, Marshay, thank you very much for joining us today. I know we had a little bit of connection issues. We'll try and fix that in post a little bit, but thank you very much for joining us, man.